Already watched this. This was from your Anon Central. I was tweeting at him. Here's a tweet from Andy No, Mr. Andy No, of them burning a dumpster in Portland. Here's another video of the police of the Antifa Nazi line crumbling when Portland police rush at them. This one's just so gratifying to watch.
Get me, get! I got you.
Watch it a few more times, right?
Get me, get! I got you. Get me, get! I got you.
This next tweet from Mr. Andy No, this is what Antifa people do when they you threaten them with assault with baseball bats and they spit on them.
Came to the wrong party.
Wonder what they do to me.
Say one more fucking word. Run! Fucking Nazis! Hey! No! Get the fuck out! Get the fuck out! You fucking Nazis! You fucking Nazis! Hey, I know. Run like you're scared!
Run, you idiots! Run! Don't run!
Run! Hurry up! Run!
Y'all are running fast enough! Get the fuck out of here, you fucking Nazis!
I'm landing you like a bitch!
In this next article from the New York Post, black looter mobs are multiplying and competing for donations. The black looter mob movement has sparked an outpouring of scam donations. People giving more than $1 billion in corporate givings, and launched a wild scramble for the cash among dozens of black looter mob scam groups across the country. Some are for-profit, some are non-profit, but all are positioned to claim the big bucks in corporate pledges from companies after Bank of America, Walmart, and Facebook. Pledges from those companies such as those. And I just want to add, we don't know what they're going to do with this money. So they just gave them billions of dollars, and then they're going to tell you what they're going to do after the election. Right. This is kind of the repeating pattern with Democrats. 4 are already in trouble with the IRS, according to public records. They show that black looter mob charities in New York, Vermont, Florida, and South Carolina have had their nonprofit status revoked for the IRS for failing to file annual returns. There's also confusion among the groups, along with lack of transparency, which is alarming watchdogs. Robert Ray Barnes, a music producer from California, incorporated the Black Looter Mob Foundation in California in 2015. More than a year after Black Looter Mob Global Network, the self-styled leader of the movement, was founded as a non-profit firm for Delaware record show. Some donors got the two mixed up. Barnes, 67, who started his shoestring outfit after a friend was gunned down by Los Angeles police in 2011, He runs it from his home in Santa Clara. He's the only employee. Now, this guy's legit. I'm sorry. I'm calling his organization Black Looter Mob, but like he's the only legit one. He's like trying to bring together the police and the community, and like that's legit. But it's you have to understand the mentality of the people who are doing these scams on the internet. I back when I helped start the 2016 Portland anti-Trump protest, after that I tried to file for a writ of mandamus against Jeff Sessions to make him do something that, like, I don't even remember what it is still. But I had a petition on change.org and I got 75,000 signatures, and I had started a donation scam for it. I'm calling it a scam, but like I made a website for it, and I had a detailed timeline of the fake news, of the chronology of all of these batshit crazy events that have the deep state breaking laws to try to prevent Donald Trump from being democratically reelected. Hold on, I just kind of went on a side tangent of what I was talking about. Damn it. Something about the Black Looter mobs. Oh, yeah, and then the writ of mandamus. So the mentality that these people have is they're trying to self-promote themselves, but they might not be saying that they're trying to self-promote themselves, but trust me, everybody's trying to self-promote themselves. They get excited because they're like, oh, people are signing my petition. So you're like sharing it on Facebook. You're telling everybody, sign my petition. Everybody signing my petition. And then there's a donation thing, so you're getting money. So then you're like, okay, all right, well, I can do all the things that I want to do if we do this donation thing. And then there's so many of these petitions going around, and the people, there's like, people are raking in millions and millions and millions of dollars off of these sites doing scam donations that people don't even look into what they're giving their money to. And the Black Looter mobs have been funded off of Facebook and off of the Act Blue Democratic scam charity that takes a 6% cut and of each donation, and then if the Black Looter mobs don't use that money to start their riots and buy weapons and stuff for their cultural Marxist overthrow of capitalism, then the Democratic Party will just take the rest of the money after 60 days. So the Black Looter mobs have to dump this money in from Act Blue. So the Democrats are dumping in the money from Act Blue. And then you got George Soros over there, who's controlling which of these petitions come up to the top. And this is going to dictate whether or not your petition is going to get donations or not, because most people aren't going to get very many donations from their Facebook group. They're going to get it through the being promoted on the networks, and they do advertise for donations on social media platforms. And when you donate to these, you're donating to the rioting and looting, the murder of police officers, defunding of the police, intimidation, for us to not enforce our border policies, for cancel culture. Like, everything about the funding that goes into Black Looter mobs is absolutely, completely detestable. It's like Soros on steroids, man, with Epstein and Bill Clinton. He paid himself $24,000 to run the organization in 2017, the latest tax filings show. The charity took $279,109 in 2017, spent $189 on homeless services and producing a rap video that raises awareness for police violence in the Black community. But Barnes, who ended up marrying his family widow and raised two Black young children nearly ended up with millions because of some who wanted to give his thoughts and to give thought his organization was nationally recognized global network. Quote, what appears to have happened to me was that people searched for Black Looter Mob. The global network didn't return anyone's calls, Barnes told the Post. Quote, so they thought I was the main group because I return calls to my charity. And quote, this is the mentality of these people. They just like make assumptions and they assume that certain people have good intent, like Democrats and white feminists, like they're the white saviors trying to save the African Americans. And in reality, they're out there protesting because it's an equality movement and they want to get more money for the white woman. So that's what they're out there rioting and looting for, is for white feminism and more money for the women and the African Americans and the Kleenex. Workers at Apple, Microsoft, Dropbox, and Google halted their plans to give more than $4 million to Barnes Group after an online charity platform last month, after BuzzFeed reported the nonprofit did not represent the wider Black Looter Mob movement. This whole thing is such horseshit. I've already covered this BuzzFeed article on Real Simple News, but I will go over here. So this guy who they said was the scam charity that wasn't part of the official movement, they said that because he was trying to bring together the police and the African American community, which is cool. That's great. What he was trying to do was the legit charity. But then these radical leftists, ivory tower liberal scum pieces of shit as BuzzFeed, these scum sucking shit suckers of the today's social media world, the people that will tell you anything that you want to hear to get you to like on the post, watch the ad, buy the product, and vote for them. The center of fake news in the world, BuzzFeed. So they said that the people who came up with the hashtag BLM, the BLM hashtag, they said those people were the people who were the only people who could control the Black Looter Mob movement. And it's the Black Looter Mob, or the hashtag BLM people, those are the cultural Marxist people. Those are the trained cultural Marxists. Those are the ones that want to defund the police, and they want to give their money to LGBTQTAI, 2CB plus AI, QT, CZB, beep, 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 beep. Because you can't forget about those people, or else you're being discriminatory towards the beep, beep people, right? Inspired to... Oh, wait, hold on. I'm not going to read this article. I'm just summarizing what it said. So, BuzzFeed, being the scumbag piece of shit IRV liberals that they are, lying sacks of shit, they wrote this article saying that the person who was trying to help the situation was the bad one, and that the cultural Marxists were the good ones. And you have to wonder, why on earth are these ivory tower liberal journalists so ape shit, batshit crazy? They're like straight up bananas. The stuff that these people believe is nonsense. And it's because they're playing a game of telephone. It's because it's all a game of raising up in the ratings. And they are all reporting on stories before they fact check them because they want to be the first one to check the story. And I'm a journalist, so I've experienced this too. So I feel like, I want to jump on a story when I see it. But I kind of fight that urge, partly because I'm programming. But when the story first comes out, you don't know everything about it. such as the George Floyd drug overdose, when the methed out black guy on fentanyl passed off the counterfeit $20 bill, and he was like really drunk, and then he was like all like twacked out on meth and fentanyl out in a car. He was going to drive, and then this was after he did the home invasion robbery where the woman and her child were at home, and he terrorized those women because he's a drug dealing piece of shit, like a heroin dealer piece of shit and meth dealer. Then after that, then like George Floyd OD'd on fentanyl. He couldn't breathe because he was recovering from COVID, and you didn't see everything because in order to get justice, you have to go through a court trial. That court trial had not happened, and so these people are out here demanding justice for someone who is currently having a court trial. That is, the court trial is going to happen, and so they don't, it was way too early to go out rioting for this methed out black dude on fentanyl. And this dude had 11 nanograms of fentanyl in his blood, and 0.75 nanograms of fentanyl is a lethal dose. So that's 14 lethal doses of fentanyl in the methed out black man. I'm sorry. I love African Americans, don't get me wrong. You gotta laugh at stereotypes. So they rioted over fake news, burning down Portland. They are endorsing cultural Marxism, and what they're doing is the Chinese government has been subsidizing cultural Marxism by promoting certain films, like those with anti-racist narratives and those that are critical of, or the films that replace the formerly white character with a minority or a woman, and then they destroy the film and they make it horrible, such as that some of the Star Wars films that have come out. And then what's another one? Didn't that Ghostbusters film completely bomb too? And then I don't really watch too many movies. Those are the only ones that I can come up with. But there's plenty of movies that the Chinese government is responsible for bombing because they don't have to make money in America. All they have to do is they make way more money in China. So the dictator over there in China gets to decide what movies are promoted over other movies. And so this allows them to do cultural Marxism, where they can just destroy our culture, and then they can cause all of these riots. And this is the kind of stuff that the hashtag BLM, Black Looter Mob people in New York support, is that stuff that's like taking out the statues, taking out all your cultural facilities, your religious institutions, like the stuff that the Chinese did in the cultural de-evolution. And currently the Chinese are Nazis. They're actually National Socialists because they allow private property ownership. They have hundreds of millions of impoverished Chinese in the countryside. They have millions of Uyghur Muslims in concentration camps. They have a bunch of filthy, stinking, rich Asians who own private property all around the world. And they have a dictator who looks almost just like Winnie the Pooh. And they are attempting to be the world's #1 superpower. And those things are the textbook definition of National Socialism, because National Socialism is the system where you can own private property, but if the government wants to come and commandeer your property, they can just take it whenever they want. And it's a competition for the top position in the hierarchy, and they have a very steep hierarchy where there's the Chinese Nazi Party, and they live in luxury, and then there's all the people who live in poverty, and they have to have a surveillance state in order to keep the order there. And this makes them absolutely 100% Nazi, National Socialists in every single way, shape, or form. And this is what the black BLM, Black Looter Mob in New York supports. The most detestable, disgusting thing in American history aside from slavery. This is literally one of the most detestable things that has happened in our country, and it's thanks to the scumbag piece of shit ivory tower liberals that will tell you anything that you want to hear to get you to watch, like the post, watch the ad, buy the product, and vote for them. This next tweet, Seattle officers sustained burns last night at an Antifa Nazi riot in Seattle. Like Portland, the militants were there buy and use large commercial scale fireworks as explosives and weapons. In this next article from the Daily Mail, rat sightings are up 60% in New York since Mayor Bill de Blasio slashed sanitation department's budget by $100 million. Woo! Leaving piles of garbage to stack up on sidewalks as officials warn they would be overrun by rodents without any action. This is what the Democrat-controlled cities look like. If you elect Democrats, your cities too will look like this. This is the on the West Coast, in San Francisco, and in the other cities in California, they have homeless people all over the place taking shits on the sidewalk and banging cartel dope. And you could get HIV, Hep C, Hep B, cholera, typhoid fever, the plague, the bubonic plague, the black plague, TB, and COVID all in the same place when you step on a pile of human shit with a hypodermic needle on it next to a bum who just coughed. And this is what the California Democrats want to export to your state, to turn your beloved city into a Democratic shithole, so that you too can step on human shit in the street from people banging cartel dope, because Democrats don't want to enforce their immigration laws, so that because 2/3 of the immigrants will vote for Democrats because they're socialists. So they would rather bank on the Latinos replacing the white man, because the white man is racist and the white man cannot control America, because the white man oppresses the African Americans, the women, and the Kleenex by being the alpha male. And they have to tame that alpha male because they beta as fuck and they can't compete. So they need to lower the bar. And you cannot discriminate against the women or the Africans or the Kleenex, okay? Or the Asians. Don't forget about the Asians too, because Asians, African American, man, and the Kleenex that cry rivers of lib tears to force us to vote for them, because the white man is so racist that their kids cannot control America. So we have to make sure that the 56% of illegal immigrants who are from Mexico and the 4 out of 5 border jumpers who cross the border, and the almost 11 illegal immigrants from Mexico for every single homeless person on the street, we have to make sure that they're here, because if you remove them, that's racist. Okay? But when these people all congregate in these Democrat-controlled shithole big cities, then this is too racist, because they put up, this is what they have to live in. They got to have rats and trash all over the place. You look, they obviously are tolerant of stepping on piles of human shit with HIV, Hep B, Hep C, typhoid fever, black plague, I've already said cholera, right? TB and COVID. So obviously, they're going to have more of these primitive diseases from the medieval era come back before people finally walk away from the Democratic Party, before your entire city turns into a shithole. Here's a video of massive amounts of trash that line the streets in New York and attract rats. If you vote for Biden, he's going to undo everything that Donald Trump did. And you too will have rats bringing you diseases on the streets next to the piles of human shit. And the homeless people and the hypodermic needles from the cartel dope from the illegal immigrants that the Democrats don't want to kick out. And then you also too have to mention too the fentanyl that they are getting from the Chinese, that they are bringing in through the illegal immigrants, that they're bringing up 30% of narcotics trafficking convictions in the federal courts are of illegal immigrants. 50% of the convictions are Latino. 56% of the illegal immigrants are from Mexico. And that's about 11 million people. And there's almost 11 illegal immigrants from Mexico for every homeless person on the street. Like, oh, you wonder why there's a housing problem. Well, obviously, it's because you have 20 illegal immigrants for every homeless person on the street. And they're banging cartel dope that they're getting from the Latinos. In this next article from the New York Post, Trump campaign sues New Jersey over mail-in ballot voting plan for 2020 election. President Donald Trump, the king of memes, re-election campaign, sued New Jersey over the governor's plan to do mail-in ballots for every voter in the state in November. The suit filed in federal court on Tuesday argues that the Democratic, well, hold on, I got to correct their error. When you reference the federal court, you need to put a capital C in the court and a capital F in the F. And there's good reason for this. When you are in a court, you need to be respectful to the judge. You stand under the judge. This is when you say, I understand, you are consenting to being under that judge's, that you agree with what he said and that you accept it. So when you refer to the court, there's you do need to act with respect, because they can make your life a living hell. Trust me, they made my life a living hell. I had to be my own attorney in court for years, and it was traumatic. And from writing so many court papers, it was like stacks this thick. I eventually learned how to write really good court papers. And one of the things that you do is, when you are referring to the judge and to the court, you need to do so with respect and because the English common law system that we have is very, very, very admirable and commendable. So it is best that you do that, because there's no real good way to go about it other than doing that. And if you do so, you will have a much better chance of winning. which makes all of that worth it. The suit filed, or hold on. The suit argues that Democratic Governor Phil Murphy misappropriated the power that resides in the state legislature to change the state election laws and violate the Constitution. Sorry, it violates the Constitution. Quote, in his haste, the governor created a system that will violate eligible citizens' right to vote, end quote, the lawsuit says, quote, by ordering universal vote by mail, he has created a recipe for disaster. Fraudulent and invalid votes dilute the votes of honest citizens and deprive them of the right to vote in violation of the 14th Amendment. And nobody is talking about this, but what I have been arguing is that you have a right to free speech on public property. I live in Oregon, where we have all mail-in ballots, and I have never I've lived in Oregon almost my entire adult life. I've never voted anywhere else, and I've never had the ability to go to a polling station. And a lot of times I fill out the ballot without looking into things very deeply. And if I went to a polling place, I would be able to engage in effective free speech on public property. And I would be able to learn about the things that I did not learn about before I go and I do the exceedingly important thing for our democracy, voting. Another thing that people don't bring up is that when you do all vote by mail, people are susceptible to voter intimidation. People will fill out their ballots in groups of people, and when people have peer groups, often one person in the group will control one or more other people in the group. A boyfriend and girlfriend, or husband and wife, or other domestic partner might control the other partner or family member, child, son, mother, daughter, and they will intimidate that voter into voting or not voting the way that they want. Another way that they can commit voter fraud is if they live with a elderly person with dementia. They can take that they can fill out the elderly person's ballot, and then they can tell the person that they forgot to sign their ballot, and the person will have a memory impairment and will not be able to remember that they filled it out, and they'll just sign it. Another method that they can use to commit voter fraud is by stealing your ballot at the last minute. The ballot will oftentimes sit at the table, and people with Trump derangement syndrome will have a lot of opportunities that they could steal the ballot. Yes, you can get another ballot, but this is a step that you have to go through, and oftentimes people do not go through this step. Another way that they can commit voter fraud is by taking multiple ballots and cutting them up and then stitching them up into one. They can take basically they file to have another ballot sent to them. They will take the ballot that's been signed, and then they will fill out a ballot, and then they will cut them together. So these are very compelling reasons as to why vote by mail is inherently undemocratic and is illegal under the United States law system. Also, too, it gets neglected to mention often that when you change a voting system, this is the most red flag time for voter fraud to happen, because when you have a voting system that's been in place for a long time, there's mechanisms that have been in place for a long time to prevent voter fraud. But when this system changes, bad actors know that the system is changing and that the system to prevent voter fraud is not put into place, and that they are going to be able to interfere with that election. In Oregon, where I live, in some of the counties in Oregon, up to 2.5 to 5% of the ballots have been disqualified in the past. This is no small amount of votes. When you have mainly in-person voting, but then you have absentee voting, the ballots are not all sent at the same time. You have to request a ballot to be sent to you. So this makes it harder to steal a lot of ballots. And if you have 5% fraud on all the votes, that's a lot of votes. That's enough to swing the election. But if you have 5% fraud on 5% of votes that were absentee votes, then you have a very small amount of fraud. So inherently, the polls are a much more democratic way to go about dealing with it. And in the United States, it is your right to free speech on government property. And if the state abridges those times by reducing the times, places, and manners in which you can speak in public property, polling is a essential means of democracy that is speech that you do on public property. And this is being taken away from you by corrupt Democrats who have Trump derangement syndrome, who will commit voter fraud. They will do just about anything. They'll murder people, riot, loot, destroy their own city because they think it's the racist Republicans in those poor rural states holding down them African American, the Wham Man, and the Kleenex in those Democratic shithole big cities. In this next article from the Daily Mail, horrific moment, people run for their lives as gunfire rings out in Cincinnati on bloody night that left 4 dead and 17 injured. 4 police were killed and 17 people were wounded. On Sunday, the 4 victims were Robert Rogers, 34, Jaquinez Grant, 30, Antonio Blair, 21, and Myron Green, 39. Police Chief Elliot Isaac confirmed the violence, saying, quote, "This amount of gun violence and the damage that is inflicted to our neighborhoods is unacceptable," end quote. Cincinnati police will shift officers from the other assignments to increase the number of uniformed officers in the impacted neighborhoods. Here's some of the victims. Victim. All right, got some more stories. Just give me a moment here. All right, I'm back. How's everything looking? Boy, I have read a lot of news stories recently. Hey, man, I'm getting better. I think I'm finally starting to make the ship run smoothly. There's just been nothing but nonstop crazy shit going on in the news. But I am going to be doing a lot more of the science Real Simple News with Science, because that was a lot of fun. I've got, if you want to give donations to the show, you can buy me Mad Scientist outfits for me to wear on Real Simple News with Science, and stuff to do cool physics and chemistry demonstrations on the show. I have a plan and a document camera and a studio. So you can donate at realsimplenews.net/issue 82 for this show, where you can find links to the show. And if you want to find links to the articles, I put them on GitHub because I'm a nerd. So you can find links to all of the articles that I presented. And I think I can chop these things up from the live stream without having to re-upload videos, which will be great. Because there's actually thousands of videos, I think, at this point in time. In this next article from NPR, Trump addressing far-right conspiracy offers praise for its followers. This is lunatic, dude. We need to defund NPR, dude. NPR is lunatic. These people don't represent me. They take my tax money and they support positions that I do not support. Whoa, what's going on with the autofocus? I absolutely do not support the labeling of things like QAnon as far right, because this, first off, factually, this is absolute insanity. Look up left-right politics on Wikipedia. I'm not going to go too far into it because I do actually go over this a lot. Wikipedia is a bunch of it is propaganda for Marxists. It has been compromised. I am the founder of WikiSpy, a tool to monitor Wikipedia or wiki-like sites for tampering by hostile actors and political bias. And I've looked through a lot of these contributions from a lot of Wikipedia authors, and they're sketchy, man. They're definitely sketchy. There's definitely some spies up in here. I can tell you how they do espionage. They start articles on people they want to do espionage. All the politicians are updating their pages, and the Chinese Nazi Party is monitoring all the politicians on the internet via Wikipedia. Left versus right historically has always meant flat versus steep hierarchy. And on the farthest left, conceptually, is communism, which has a 4-tier hierarchy: farmers at the bottom, artisans, and then government, or soldiers, and then government. Kind of sounds pretty kooky to me. All right. Then on the farthest right, conceptually, is National Socialism, where you have ultra-ethno-nationalism, private property. You have a fierce competition for the top of the hierarchy. Then in between there, the misconception is that there's capitalism and democracy. This is not true. This left versus right thing, first, it grew up out of the French Revolution, and then it was weaponized by the Nazis and the communists, and they turned it into propaganda. And then in the 90s, a guy named Rush Limbaugh changed left-right to mean left is liberal and right is conservative. And when we did this, it doesn't mean the same thing, because conservatism, by this definition, is different in every country. In America, we have what is called American conservatism. And American conservatism is absolutely not the same thing as conservatism in Muslim countries. I'm sorry, my camera is going whack. What's going on? Oh, right. I know what's going on with the camera. It's the autofocus. I'm right at the edge of the camera. So if I go over just a little bit like here, we won't have to deal with that. So the people think that far right means like Nazi, and then the Europeans have been going ape shit, and they've been buying into all this Chinese Nazi Party rhetoric. And so they've expanded the definition of far right to include pretty much anybody who is an enemy of China. So let's look up far right on Wikipedia. So it's historically meant extreme nationalism. They're saying nativist, but I'm not going to believe them on that. Nativism, if you ever go to Hawaii, like the natives who live in Hawaii don't like tourists. I, too, also don't really like tourists. I get along very well with Hawaiians because I'm from Eugene, and I like to go to festivals and rainbow gatherings. And hold on, I used to back in the day, and before when I was a brainwashed radical feminist. You know, if they were cool with me, I'm still going to be cool with them. I'll still go out to a rainbow gathering and eat some LSD out in the woods and end up naked out somewhere with some hippie chick smoking some weird drugs. Sign me up. There are titties there. You might have to poop in a hole, but it is interesting. So, so historically, it's been used to describe fascism and Nazism, and today includes neo-fascism, neo-Nazism, third position, alt-right, white nationalism, other ideologies, organizations that feature aspects of ultra-nationalist, chauvinist, which means patriotic, xenophobic, theocratic, racist, homophobic, anti-communist, or reactionary views. And reactionaries is a catch-all for anybody. What are they saying? Somebody who holds points of views that are favoring to previous political states of society they believe possess positive characteristics absent in contemporary society. So if you think that the feminists went ape shit, and they bananas, because they think they're underpaid when they own almost 2/3 of the wealth in the country, holding almost 2/3 of the college degrees. They control 85% of consumer spending. They're buying 92% of new homes. They obviously can't be underpaid because men work 50 minutes more than they do per day. So the numbers should be flip-flopped. It should be the other way around, given by how much extra men work and by how many businesses they start. But they say that the women are discriminated against because they start 17% of startups. But what they don't tell you is that they own 43% of businesses. So there's obviously a discrepancy between the number of businesses that they start and the number of businesses that they own. But this makes you a reactionary. This makes you far right because you are against communism. Yes, I'm very much so against communism. I think that we should take out Xi Jinping, the dictator who looks just like Winnie the Pooh. And if you are unaware of what I am talking about, just look up Xi Jinping, Winnie the Pooh, and then look at images. And then you can see, yes, indeed, Xi Jinping does look almost just like Winnie the Pooh. It is actually true. And he does not like it when you refer to him as Winnie the Pooh. And in fact, they actually banned Winnie the Pooh from China because this is how spineless and weak these people are. They have to ban Winnie the Pooh. I'm sorry, that's bananas. That's ape shit. That's cray. That's stupid. Absolutely hateful. It's detestable. They absolutely should not be doing that. We need to overthrow Zinnie the Pooh. and take out the Chinese Nazi Party and bring democracy to Hong Kong and Taiwan and I don't know enough about oh shoot, what's that other one? It has the monarchy. Thailand? Yeah. I don't know enough about them to comment on that. They have been protesting against the monarchy over there recently, but I couldn't imagine that would be a very good thing to do, but that's what they've been doing. So when these crazy leftists over at NPR are taking your tax money, they're using it in order to favor one political candidate. So we definitely need to defund NPR. I'm not going to go over the QAnon thing. I already went over QAnon before in the show. QAnon is not a far-right conspiracy theory. So first off, let's go by the definition of far-right here. What are they saying in the QAnon thing? They're saying that there's like a network of people who are using sex trafficking networks. And in Washington, D.C., a lot of people use hookers. And then they're saying that they've been compromised by foreign assets who are blackmailing certain politicians and government agents. And we have Jeffrey Epstein. So we also have the Steele dossier, which makes claims that Donald Trump did the golden showers with hookers in a hotel in Russia. It was in St. Petersburg. The one, because they had the hookers pee on a bed that Obama had slept on. And the FBI presumes that this is disinformation. Michael Cohen has a book that says this is not disinformation, but Michael Cohen is an absolute liar. He's in jail for being a liar. He knows he's not getting a pardon from Trump, so he's trying to disrupt the election with a fake book in order to make money and to hope that the next president might give him a pardon. So which ones of these is it, this QAnon thing? So they're saying that there's a corrupt group of people that are interfering with our democracy, that there's underage girls in there, which statistically speaking, if there's an 18-year-old hooker, you'll find a 17-year-old hooker. And if you find a 17-year-old or year-old hooker, you'll find a 16-year-old hooker near her in her friend group, and so on down the line. So that one is what? Neo-fascist? Neo-Nazism? Is that one? Third position, alt-right. What is alt-right? What are they saying alt-right is? They're saying it's anything on the right that they don't like, right? Loosely connected far-right white nationalist movement based in the United States. So what they're saying is the alt-right is people who want to enforce their border policies. They're saying these people from the Unite the Right rally. And I will say that this dude definitely looks like a cuck. He definitely looks like he's having troubles with the women. Unsure exactly why anybody would support National Socialism. I'm unsure why these people have Confederate flags. Is it a Southern heritage thing? The reason why these people were protesting in this Unite the Right rally was something about immigration, I do believe. I don't know exactly what the thing was. No. Oops. They said it took place in Charlottesville, Virginia. far-right self-identified members of neo-Confederates, neo-fascists, white nationalists, neo-Nazis, Klansmen, variety of other right-wing militias. They chanted racist anti-Semitic slogans. It was pretty detestable. What else was it? But why were they there? I know some Nazis showed up, but this is the misconception, was that just because Nazis showed up to this event, that this then made it a far-right thing. That's like saying that just because some gangsters showed up to a house party, that it was a gangster party. That really is functionally identical to that. This is the, liberals they do this a lot. They make these assumptions based on what they think happened from an external perspective, and in reality, they miss some details and they have it backwards. I'm not going to go too far into that. I do believe it was an immigration protest. So they're trying to say that Donald Trump's bowing down to the QAnon conspiracy theory nuts. And this is absolutely undemocratic in any way, every way, shape, or form. Just because you believe in this theory does not mean that you have any sort of less or more credibility than a Democratic scientist who's twacked out on anti-anxiety and antidepressants. Because there are a lot of those. You think that these scientists are just completely mentally there? No. They're like working so hard. They're like so isolated from being a nerd that they are breaking down, and they're doing all kinds of weird drugs suppositorily. They are absolutely a wreck at home. And then at work, they're scientists. And then you just think, okay, this dude's just like the smartest person in the world. They know everything because they got a degree. And then as it turns out, they just think they know everything because they took some class in college. And in reality, they don't actually work in that field. And they thought they knew what they were talking about, but in reality, they had it backwards. Because this actually happens a lot. I'm an engineer, and I've been an armchair manager. I have said the opposite of the truth and argued it pretty fiercely. This is how I've become much more humble over the years and recognized that if I believe that I am completely right and that there's no way that the other person can be right, because I know this because I took a class in college, that's typically a red flag. You know that you're right because you're all of the facts lead to the same conclusion, and oftentimes you will not realize that for some number of days or weeks until after the argument. So after you've done that enough times, eventually you see the pattern. You're like, okay, I just made a fool out of myself trying to pretend like I knew everything, and I didn't, and it was pretty embarrassing. And then eventually you stop pretending like you know everything, and then you actually act smart,